intro as well.
All right, welcome back to the Ultimate Homeschool Community Podcast. I'm your host, Tiffany Hernandez. Today, we are going to be talking about launching your profitable summer camps with JoAnn from Camp Mentor. So welcome, JoAnn. How are you today?
I'm fabulous, Tiffany. How are you doing?
I am wonderful. So we've had JoAnn come on before to share a little bit about some of the summer camp things that we have going on. And that's really been a incredible journey. If you haven't seen that,
Yes.
we can share a little bit of that later on in the show notes below. But I just want to let you share a little bit about yourself again and really what you've created to help educators, moms, nonprofits, microschools, education programs in general, and really how it's helping to expand their reach.
Sure. I'm happy to do that. Well, as we talked about before, I started homeschooling my kids back when homeschooling, wasn't cool. Right around the time, Texas was making their big decisions and, fighting for their freedoms. So it was a little bit after that. I homeschooled all four of my kids all the way up through high school and beyond. I now have 12, soon to be 13 grandchildren. So that kind of gives you an idea of how long I've been doing this. And during that time, I became a single mom and I loved teaching, always did. And I was already teaching classes and I was working in a home, co-op and creating new avenues for people to get together, started new co-ops and enrichment activities. And I soon found that the one thing that was sticking, especially after I became a single mom and needed an income, was summer camps. And so I started to really dive into summer camps, and it worked out great because summer camps allowed me to have the rest of the year off and gave me time with my kids and homeschooling and our co-op and everything that we did. And it was also an opportunity for all my other homeschool mama friends to get involved with their kids and to be a part of making some extra income for themselves. And I found that I really, really enjoyed reaching out and providing a service to organizations that I partnered with, as well as providing a service to families for their kids, because there's a lot of people out there that have to work in the summer. And part of what I was doing was providing a safe educational outlet for their kids in the summertime. And so that's how everything got started. And I'm still in that business. I am still creating summer camps. And I met Tiffany and we started talking about different things. And I knew I always wanted to be a consultant, mentor, coach for other homeschool families was my big thing. I mean, I do own a microschool as well. And I see that having summer camps within your microschool is a game changer for making sure that you stay profitable. Mm-hmm. But the other side of that is the homeschool families that are looking for a valuable part-time side hustle, full-time if they want to, legacy for their families where kids can be involved. So, just to give you an example, all of my kids were involved in teaching, with the exception of my daughter. She was my artist, so she was taking pictures. But all of my boys taught, and I believe personally it's changed how they're just better individuals because of it. They have that ability to stand in a classroom and teach younger children and connect with them. So they're all great. So I have a son that went off into the tech world. I have another that went into education. I have another that's still kind of trying to navigate. So that's where we're at. But I find that it's a way that a family can stay together, learn together, earn together, and create a legacy.
Absolutely. Yes. And JoAnn didn't really share. She's been doing this for a long time, but it's been over a decade.
Yes.
And she's been making six figures for several of those years doing summer camps. So it is possible, it is profitable, which we're going to get into a little bit because we hear micro schools aren't, maybe that successful, or they're relying mostly on grants, or, some of them are just barely making it and they're really just doing it for their children. And so when we talk about profitable summer camps, it's like, okay, so what do we mean by that? How does that actually work? And like, why does it really matter for those homeschool families and micro schools to be profitable? Because I think that is sometimes a misconception that we all have.
Right. Yeah. So the beauty of how to be profitable in a summer camp, after you have your gross. So everybody if you're looking at business, you have your gross, and at the end of that, you have what's left over, and that's your profit. And you want to make sure that your profit is able to sustain you, so you want to keep moving forward. Like you don't want to get into a business where you're not making any money. And when I say profit too, there's some ways around that. Like you can have a small profit, but you can still have your business pay for your vehicle, because your vehicle is your primary way of moving your equipment around, and your insurance on your vehicle. So those are all things, and I'm not a tax, person, but that's something for you to talk to. But those are things that get paid for, even your phone, because you're using your phone, your internet service, because you're making sure that you're, having to stay on the internet so that you can work. A part of your house becomes, taken off on your taxes. So all of those things become money in your pockets, so to speak, in a different way. And then your profit at the end is what you take home. You also pay yourself and pay your children. And you can put their money someplace if you want it to be different than just, they could go into a savings account or whatever type of investments that you want, but you get to pay them and you get to pay yourself as well.
Right.
So those are different ways that it is profitable for you. And then the biggest thing is it creates stability. And even within the microschooling community, that stability of knowing that you're going to be bringing in that extra money in the summertime that you would normally shut down is a game changer. And then there's the other part of that too, that is not necessarily profitable, but it's community driven. So you're out in the community, but it's also a way to funnel people back into your school. So they may go, oh, I didn't know that your school was here. Oh, they do their summer camp. They love it. They love your programs. And then they sign up for your micro school later on.
Absolutely, which is where we are coming from. There's multiple ways to be profitable, which is why this is just one revenue stream that you're talking about that can help impact all the other revenue streams. Because let's face it, if we do need to make an income, like you were a stay-at-home mom, but you were also a single parent. So now what do we do? Because we still want to be with our kids. We don't want to maybe put them in public school, or maybe they're not capable of being in public school. So we have to make a way around that. But a lot of times, these parents might get started and they're just making a bunch of mistakes. I know I made my own mistakes. It took me a long time to get to where I'm at. I've invested a lot because I've seen the benefit of that, the mentorship, being able to have somebody who has gone before you that say, hey, like, don't do this, do that. You can save so much time and energy. But I would say, what are some of those most common mistakes that you see homeschool families or groups make when they try those summer camps the first time? Because a lot of times it could be very overwhelming. It's like, okay, I'm doing this, I know I want to do it, but what maybe could I avoid?
Those are good questions. I think one of the first things is don't underprice yourself. That's a huge big one. Do some market studies. See, just looking on the internet for all the camps that are going on in your area, see where they're coming in at, where their price point is, and seeing if there is something that's not showing up. Because I do see like the second, there's a couple of mistakes, but one of the other mistakes is doing what you love and not necessarily doing what people need. And that is a big thing. Kind of like you're going to have to make sure that you're able to go, hey, I'm a really great teacher, but I see that nobody's doing nature camps or something like that. There might be a reason why no one's doing it. Maybe they tried, maybe it didn't succeed, or maybe nobody's doing it and that's your niche. And so you go, okay, yeah, I would love to do nature camps. Or maybe you don't see any technology camps And you're like, okay, there's a lot of art and nature out there, but I don't see any technology, no STEM camps or very little. I'm going to go into that. And what I tell people too is don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to try something that you wouldn't normally do or you don't absolutely love. Because in that, you're going to be making, you're still going to be infusing what you love, which is teaching and creating a space for kids to grow. And then my biggest first mistake that I ever made was doing too much. I remember my first year and I had lanyards printed out and I had pencils and I had this and I had that and that. And what I quickly realized is they just didn't care about those things. And those things just went to the wayside. Now we have stickies for, name tags. It's super easy. Doesn't cost me as much. So we don't do the lanyards because the kids were like biting them off or whatever. It's like, nope, we're not doing lanyards. We'll do that for the adults. Just certain things, or trying to do too many different types of camp, starting out of the gate because we love them all, and coming up with a very simple first time camp. Those are some big things as well. And that's one of the things that I teach in the master class is to come up with your base equipment, and then you build your camps around it. And those camps can have all sorts of different themes and activities, but you're still using that same equipment. And that is a huge, big game changer as well, because you're not having to buy new equipment for each week. You're using the same equipment over and over again. It's just big savings. Yeah.
And that's what we talk about in the mentorship program, which we'll be sharing a little bit about later on in this episode. And I'm glad that you talked about the mistake of doing too many things starting out. I, for one, am one of those people where I'm like, yes, I'm going to get all this stuff done and it's going to be great. And then we get started and we're, oh my goodness, how am I going to keep up with all these things? So it's better to do less than more. And like you said, yes. They don't care about a lot of the extra things that we think they're going to care about. So a lot of it is trial and error, but also just paying attention when you do that first week of camp, or maybe you do that event that is before camp even gets started, which we also talked about in our mentorship program. Yeah. And JoAnn will be sharing a little bit more about that. We come to this part where, okay, now we have summer camps and we really enjoy having them. Nature camps maybe don't need a building as much, but a lot of times other types of camps need buildings, they need chairs, we need bathrooms. Like this tends to be a big stumbling block. Yes. And a lot of educators end up feeling stuck because they don't have a building. How can camps work without brick and mortar? Because I feel like that's a big barrier when people are like, when educators are coming out of even the public sector, they're like, okay, where do I get a building? I was in a schoolroom and now I have to figure this out.
Yeah. Yeah. So the biggest thing, and one of the biggest misconceptions, is that you need a building, and you don't. You just don't. I never had a building until I got my microschool. And then with my microschool, I have a building because we're there 24/7. But with summer camps, it's partnerships. It's partnerships plus spaces and places. And it is a clear plan, and it's setting up relationships with those partners. So you're looking at churches and rec centers, you're looking at private schools, community centers, microschools, all of those locations may be willing or are willing to host you to come in. And for that, you give them a percentage of your gross revenue. And so I've worked with churches where I give 15%, rec centers get a little bit more. I've got a community center that gets a lot more, but the community center does everything. They do everything from registration to marketing, to having staff on hand when I'm there as well. So it's like, I'm more than happy to give them that. And in return, we have huge summer camps there. So those are some of the, I think, the key points that we need to understand. So all you really need is a space. And I've had my equipment in everything from a spare bedroom to my garage, to out in a living room. So, it's just where you have the space for it. Yes, you. Yes,
I have seen it. Over decades, she's got quite a plethora, but that doesn't mean that you have to start out like that. You do not need all the equipment.
No.
JoAnn, can you tell everybody how many summer camps you run every summer so they can kind of get a feel for why you have so much stuff?
Oh, yeah, that's it. Yes. So we average in Central Texas area, we average about in the entire summer, it's about 60 to 70 camps. Um, roughly. It could be even more than that. Maybe even 120 sometimes, but some of those are half day camps and some of them are like one-off workshops, but we do all of those. We work with school districts as well. That's one that I didn't tell you about, but we work specifically with school districts that bring in enrichment programs. Again, that's another great one because they handle all the registration.
Yes.
So yeah, we do a lot of summer camps. We hire about 30 to 40 people in the summer to take care of all of our camps.
Right.
And we average about 2,500 to 5,000 students in a summer.
Which
Just
is a
depends. It's
huge
crazy.
impact. Huge impact. Okay, so but we didn't start there. JoAnn started with just like one summer camp a week, which was like 6 weeks of just one camp. Like some of them were even just half day camps. So you don't need to start out with this big conglomerate
No, no.
of a
Of course, I don't
plan.
recommend it.
Of
Don't
course not.
recommend it.
No, no, no.
Baby steps. Get your feet wet and then move forward. Because once you have all your programs and your structure and everything together, then everything becomes easier.
Yes.
And that's it. Like you
Systems.
start off with those baby steps. Systems are super important.
Super crucial. And again, I
Yes.
preface this by saying this is what we go over in the mentorship program. You learn all
Yeah.
this stuff, you get it all, and take it home with you, and it saves you tens of thousands of hours. Which brings us to another option that they can also choose, which you're just starting to offer this, and so this is really like
Yes.
in a beta testing area. But can you talk about your current client that you have, and what you're actually doing for them from start to finish?
Yeah, so I'm actually working with a client here in the Dallas area, and they own um, a homeschool co-op, kind of. It's their leadership academy, and they have a bookstore, and they have a really big presence. And I connected with her. We kind of connected together, and we talked about how, what she's doing is great, but it's not bringing in enough money. And I basically proposed, hey, how about we give summer camps a try? And we tossed it around a bit. And one of the things that we decided is that I don't get paid until you get paid. So I'm literally coming in and I'm investing my time and my energy knowing in something that I know will work. She's got a big community, so I know it's going to work within the community. She's also going to use this as an outreach program to get people to come in. Um, and because we're also setting up their leaders in training as well program for their homeschool students. So they're now currently I am teaching and training their staff that's going to be there this summer by doing a homeschool class for them. So I'm investing my time. And so I will walk alongside the right client to invest. And then a percentage of those fees will come back to me at the end of it all. And then they will keep the rest. And then they can move forward. They can call me up next summer and say, hey, we'd like you to come back and help out. Or but they'll have everything. They'll have their systems, they'll have all their forms, registrations, the policies, the waivers, they'll have their systems in place, check in, check out, daily communications. And because I'm walking through it with them, I can catch anything that is automatic for me. That's my biggest problem. It's like things are so automatic for me that it's not for everybody else. So this is what's helpful. It's like, oh yeah, no, you do it like this, but I didn't write it down. So those are things everything that she'll get, plus they'll have their own curriculum as well to pull from. And so I will, do customized curriculum for them as well.
Right.
So it's kind of my way to make sure that we're building a camp program and a system that works. And so that'll be my proof of concept. So by next fall, I will have an answer as to whether or not this was a viable solution or not.
Absolutely. Well, we both know from all your years of experience
Yeah.
that it is a viable option. This is more like, how does it work with the client? How does that interaction
Yes.
go? Which I think, depending on you, and we'll go into this for just a minute, but this doesn't mean that there is no work for the client. The work still has to get
Right.
done. They are still involved. You're not doing
Yeah,
everything for them.
absolutely.
You are guiding them, you are helping them, you're giving them all the tools, and you're walking alongside them to make sure it is successful.
Right.
But there is work involved. This is not a get rich quick scheme, just like nothing is when you start in business. Your business is your baby and you're supporting it. But there are faster ways to get profitable when you have somebody coming alongside you, which is where this is so important. Um, and
Yes.
with that, you're helping them run for proof of concept. Why would you say that step is so important?
Because it lowers risk and it builds confidence. And that is really the big key. Especially in this situation, she is so inundated with the everyday in and outs of things that for her to have to, and I know she could do it on her own. I'm sure she could if that was the only thing that she was doing, but she's not. She's running, she is basically drinking from the fire hydrant right now. And so having someone walk alongside her and basically go, okay, this is what we're doing. And for me to tell her, okay, yes, you're going to need to get this out. Or like we had a conversation where I was like, okay, you're going to need to pick 5 locations, 5 key locations. You're going to have to reach out to them. This is where we're going to have our free events. And so that's her job. I'm telling her what to do, knowing that this is important. And then, okay, now we're going to have to make sure that we have enough people to work those free events. And so she's going to make sure that happens. So these are just me basically being her second brain, knowing that she can do it, but doing it on her own. So yes, absolutely. But proof of concept. And I love it because they were like, at the same time, they're like, oh, yeah, okay. So really, that gives us confidence because you put your skin in the game. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. And I do believe I would not put in the amount of hours that I'm going to be putting in if I
Right,
didn't believe it's going to happen. It's going to work out.
right.
I just do.
Um,
It's going to be great.
Oh, you're gonna have, yes. Well, and the size of community that she has also matters for why you're coming in and saying, yes, this is going to work.
Yes.
For maybe
Yes.
those others that are just coming out of the education system or just deciding to homeschool or just coming out of their corporate job and like, okay, I'm gonna make this multi-million dollar, business come out of like poof thin air. There's a little bit more time involved to gain the following, to gain the community and all of that. So that does get taken into consideration when you decide, to work with a client or come alongside them, because that, not saying that is
Yes.
everything, but it does have a huge impact in how successful the program will be. If you had, let's say, started with nothing and you just came into a group and maybe you had, a class with 12 kids your first summer, like that's a huge step from 0 to 12, right?
When?
Right, that's a huge
Yes.
win. So we're not saying there isn't any size win that's not good. We're just saying, if you're going to come alongside to see that this works, sometimes you've also got to think about how long you've been doing, or how long, or how much, or how large your community is as well, which also talks about the profits. So, when you're getting paid at the end of camp and profits come in, um, why? So a lot of it's like, okay, how can you choose that model? Like, because
Why
you're
would you
doing all
do
this
that?
work, getting paid. Like, why are you going to do this work? And then that says a lot about how you do your work, because we're all about integrity here as well. But can you share a little bit about how that whole preface works? Because I think a lot of people might think, okay, there's got to be some strings attached.
Right. No strings. It's I will, okay, so in the right situation, I'm willing to carry the risk. And so I met with this organization for several months before we signed contracts. And I got to see the operation. I got to see what she has. I'm seeing her on social media regularly. So I know that she is actively doing what she needs to do. She also has somebody that does her social media for her. She has a lot of people that are coming alongside her. Plus, she also has a husband that has just been supporting her along the way. So those are some really key things that I look at before I go into a partnership. So for me, then it's like, okay, I know this is going to work because they already have systems in place. What they just don't have is a summer camp. I mean, she sent out word to everybody, and within a couple of months, she had a full academy because people were so eager for that. So I know that she's got a big reach as well. That's another thing. So for those that want to come into that without that, you can either have that beforehand or you're going to have to build it up. Now, she's taken many years to build that up. So that's why I'm like, this is where I can come in and I can do this. But I only go in with organizations that have already established a really, really connected community.
Mm-hmm.
And then that community can also help. So that's a really huge, big thing. Yeah, I'm willing to get paid after from the profits because I know that it's going to work. And that's the beauty of it too. There's never not a profit. And that's the secret sauce. It just depends on how big the profit is because you don't run camps unless you have X amount of students.
Right.
And so you have to make sure you have those students before you can run a camp. Or, I mean, maybe you have, or maybe you haven't, but camps get canceled because of low enrollment. Classes get canceled because of low enrollment. It happens.
Right.
There's a very clear, calculator that you can use that just basically says, hey, if this is all your expenses, then this is how many students you need.
Yes.
And don't run
and
without
at this
this.
price. Right.
Yeah,
Right. And
exactly.
okay. And so with that too, because we're talking about only working, you don't only work with these clients, you only come alongside clients in this kind of scenario.
Yes.
Where you will run with them and do profit sharing at the end. You also
Yes.
have your mentorship program, which we said we would mention a little bit later on. Can you share a little bit about that and how educators who are just starting out have a way to get started, how they can start building their following, how they can start building their communities, and still be able to make some profits as well, and at least cover their costs?
Yes. So for someone that's just coming, like, let's say you're a full-time teacher and you have summers off and you're like, yeah, let me start doing summer camps. And there are schools that allow teachers to come in and teach summer camps, and that's great. And they keep that money. And you're like, okay, or you can go, hey, but I'm thinking a little bit forward and I'm thinking about maybe retiring and I want to do this a little bit more full-time later on. So how do you do that? Because that I think that's a really big game changer, and the same even within homeschooling families as well. It's like how do you do that? I had to make X amount of dollars, and so I had to kind of hit this pretty hard early on. But some people don't, some people do. So you can pick and choose how many camps you're going to set up, and how quickly you're going to set them up. But one of the biggest things is while you're waiting for a master class, because our master classes are going to be in the spring and in the fall, and then we're only going to do one accelerated winter master class in the winter time, because winters are just so jam-packed with holidays and everything else. I was decided to just condense it all into a very, very intense weekend. And so those are the three options that we have. And the reason, I don't do any in the summer because I'm usually knee deep in summer camps and helping others. But I will do it during those times. I do say that the best time to do it is in the fall, because then you're getting ready for for
Right.
summer early on. But if you start in spring, it's either going to give you a head start on the next year or towards the end of summer, unless you've got a really good solid community, or it gives you good ideas to start building up your solid community. Because building up your community, even if it's, on Facebook or it's just within your own school, and your children, the parents, and letting people know that you're going to have a summer camp and you're going to do something. But those are all things that you can start doing now.
Right.
You can start hosting one-off workshops. You can start doing after school classes. Those are all things that you can do to gain that momentum, so that by the time next summer comes around, you are ready. You have your list, you have your communications, your channels that that are working in your area, in your community. And that's really a huge, big, I think, help for anybody that's looking towards the future of going into a master class. And then in that master class, you pretty much get everything. Plus you get a one-on-one meeting, at the end of it all, within a couple of months, you can go, okay, yes, now I have all my questions. And then you come and we sit and we work things out. Your success is my success. And I know that sounds corny, but it really is. It's like, I really
Yes.
want camps to grow, your camps to grow. And for whatever reason, like if you just need an extra $20,000 in your pocket, fantastic, run 5 camps, and you can have $20,000 in your pocket. Maybe you just need, an extra 5,000 and you want to take the rest of the summer off. Fabulous. But if you want to do more, do more. But camps
Sky's
will
the
always
limit.
grow best out of community. Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Skies are the
Yes.
limit.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay. So speaking of the spring masterclass, we will be doing, well, I will say we, but JoAnn will be doing a 90-minute profitable profitable summer camp workshop, which really just goes over the ins and outs of how this all works, why it works, how you can make it work, how you can make it yours. And those will also be coming very soon. You can check in our show notes and get updates for that if you go to her website, which we will share later on. And that will really help you to start paying attention to what you need, paying attention to what you need to be getting ready for. And that program has already helped several students, and so this is really helping not only the community but the families to be more involved, and also the impact for these students, because real quick we'll just talk about the program and the curriculum. The curriculum has been developed, like JoAnn said, for over a decade now, and the children love these programs. They're very attuned to them. Can you share a little bit, just a snippet, because we're running out of time already, but can you share a little snippet about how they enjoy the program? Because that's really it. It's like, okay, but are they going to like it? How do they know that? How do I know that your curriculum is going to work for me?
Right. I specifically, so I've been writing curriculum for over a decade, like Tiffany had said. And one of the things I do like to do is project-based learning. We all love that. Kids love it. They're finding that it works, right? Hands-on learning, we all know that as well. So I like to do things that are out there happening right now that are exciting to kids. Kids are, they love playing with Legos, right?
Right.
So we do Lego movie making, but we don't just do Lego movie making. They've got to write a script. They've got to, come up with a beginning, middle, and end. They've got to draw it out. They've got little things that they need to learn about the technology and how to make things work, and voiceovers and this, that, and the other. So they're not just playing, but they're having a great time creating this film and being creative while learning. I always tell that's like my secret sauce. Been doing this for a while as well, because the other thing is like we have like a podcast video, podcast YouTubers. And that's not just about getting on YouTube, but that is speech. That's getting in the camera and speaking, whether it's showing somebody how to cook, or maybe it's your passion, or teaching someone how to sew, all those educational videos that we see, that's a really good skill to have. But because YouTube is cool, we're using that as our avenue to teach speech and how to write effectively and speak effectively. So that's another great way of having fun. So that's the type of curriculum that you'll see, everything from robotics to drones. You can even create, D&D has been really pretty popular. Well, how can you make that educational? Pretty easy. Those are all things that you can do out there. And so that's, to me, is what makes this work, as well as breaking up your day. Kids don't do the same thing throughout the entire day. Got to give them different things to do. Teamwork, games, art, music, all of those things are infused in a complete full package of a curriculum. So even if they're doing like a movie making, you might have them do a little bit of a skit in the afternoon, showing what they're wanting to build on screen.
Right. And JoAnn only mentioned like a small, minute section of a few of the curriculum options that you have when you go through her program, and what's available, because new curriculum is coming out as well. She's got people on her team that are helping to formulate more and more as new topics come out within what's going on with current events and everything else. Okay, so I know we talked about, you coming alongside organizations. We talked about, how you are also including this mentorship program for people who maybe don't have their community just yet, and they're trying to grow that and helping them to do that. But can we talk about pricing for summer camps? Because I feel like, you're talking about profit, and a lot of times in the homeschool world, it's like, oh, but we're on one income and we can't do this or that or whatever. But we're not just talking about homeschool kids coming to summer camp. Can you talk about how you set tuition and still serve families well?
Yeah. That's a really good question, because my first year I was way below what I should have been charging. And I slowly made the increments up to be where the industry was at. And people still come to my camps. So it's kind of like normalizing your guilt. You are providing a service.
Yes.
And
it is your
that's
time.
important to note. You are providing a safe educational service. And yes, if you're going to be competing with the local YMCA, can offer a much reduced cost than you could, but it's a totally different ballgame. They're paying their staff $14, $15 an hour, whereas I pay my staff $25 an hour. Their ratio of, children to staff is much bigger. Mine is, much smaller. So there, you have to think with that. And then also, that it's pricing shouldn't be a feeling, but again, look at the market, look at what is being out there, what's out there now. Look at your camp, look at what the cost is to run that camp. That's the real cost. Supplies, staff, location fees, just cost of doing business, the marketing, your insurance, all those other little things. And then you'll come up with a very clear way to price your camp. And then do not be ashamed to go a little bit higher. Again, here's the other little secret that you're getting, because you're going to offer your early bird discounts. You're going to offer Mother's Day discounts, maybe Father's Day will be too late, but Mother's Day, or, whatever type of discounts that are out there, you can then go, yep, hey, you can save 10%, or you have your sibling discounts. So keep that in mind, because a discount is a cost of doing business as well.
Yes.
So,
yes. And this is something you go over.
Yes, I do. And you can offer scholarships. Don't be afraid to offer scholarships. Just know that you have to reach a minimum before you can even offer that scholarship. That's it. You can say, hey, yes, we've got some scholarships available for this camp because you've reached, you don't have to even say, but you can just say that you have one scholarship, and it could be a 50% scholarship. It doesn't have to be 100% scholarship, but we do give out scholarships to our camps for those families that we know that are in need.
Right. We are not saying don't support or don't supply. We understand being in the homeschool world too, that, maybe there's some families that don't have the same opportunities. And this is a lot of where maybe another way that you can help them is say, hey, if you want to come and help, you help for free and I give you camp for free, and you do barter or exchange. Like, there's other ways to help families without feeling guilty about charging the families that can afford it. So we also talk about that a little bit as well. Which brings us to, safety, liability, staffing. Sometimes those are big fears, with all of the unsafe events that have been going on in the world. There's a lot around school safety, system safety, like what system really makes parents trust summer camps, and makes the director be able to sleep at night, because let's be real, are you really sleeping at night?
Yes, well, the week before summer camps start, I always have the hardest time sleeping, and nobody like gets it, but for me, it's just like, did I check off all my, check boxes? Did I get everything? All of those things. And then for the first week after, I'm usually just a little on ants, and then it's like, okay, we're good. And I've been doing this for years, but that still happens every year. I think it's kind of like, before you get on stage, but parents buy trust, and trust comes from clarity and consistency. And that is the biggest thing I can say, clarity and consistency. And you get that first. Making changes every year, every week, every month is not going to bring trust. And then you come up with your procedures, like you have non-negotiable and very clear check-in and check-out procedures, and whatever those are. They can be as stringent or as loose, but they're your checkout procedures, and it happens all the time. And so, because I work with locations that do registrations, each one has its own check-in and check-out. I have some that's like, you have to bring your ID all the time to pick up. And if you're not on the authorized list, you don't get to pick up. And it's very clear. And I've had parents come, it maybe dad, and it's like, okay, I'm here to pick up so-and-so, and child is right here behind me, and they're not on the authorized to pick up. And I'm not going to let that child go because I don't know. And I'm going to have to call mom and say, hey, he's not on the authorized to pick up. And then she, again, not only verbally, but I'm going to need to see it in a text message or in an email, because that saves my bacon, right?
Yeah.
So those are things that you come up with early on.
Yeah, cover all bases.
All your bases. Staff expectations, huge, big deal. Making sure that, do they get to have their phone or not? What is it used for? And then, I have some places like we have ouch reports, and incident reports. Ouch reports, is it above the shoulder? Call the parent, or where is it? Or if it's a bleed, whatever it is, but very clear expectation that goes along with training as well. Health information, making sure you get all that, emergency contacts, behavioral plans. All of those things need to be in place and very clear and in your, training manual. Your staff takes it with you, or you take it. If it's just you, and I think here's the biggest issue is that if it's just you, sometimes you feel like, I can change it up. Don't, because they buy your trust. And it comes from consistency and clarity. So just make sure that those things are always happening. And then when something does change, you make sure you send it out. You make sure everybody knows about it. Yes, this has changed, so that they know. Because I think anytime any parent complains to me, it's when expectations were not met. And then I
Right.
found that expectations are a lack of communication on my part. And so if I can communicate very clearly what's going to happen, and I tell them these are the things that are going to happen, then those are the things that better happen. And if they don't happen, I need to be able to tell them that these things didn't happen. So when I say, hey, at the end of this camp, your child's going to have XYZ, and then they go home and they don't have XYZ, then I have a really upset parent because they
Right.
didn't get what I said I was going to do. So,
Right.
yeah.
Right. That's the biggest part, I would say, for any business is clarity and communication. Make sure you're communicating everything that you're going to do, and then do the things you say you're going to do. Um, okay, so we've gone
Yeah.
through, all of the different ins and outs of how summer camps can work, why summer camps can work. For the ones who are maybe thinking like, yes, I want to do this, but maybe they just don't know how, or like maybe they're thinking, yes, it's for me, but what do I do first? What would you say you would have them do, even just like this week? Like, what's the first task?
Your first ask is first decide what you're building. What are you building your camps for? Are you building for income? Are you building them to outreach, to gain people to come into your schools? Um, or is it both? And then we start there. And then we choose one camp concept, one theme, one age range, one simple weekly structure. Don't build 10 camps. I know I did. But don't build one, and then
Yes.
run the math and decide if minimum enrollment is worth your time. And that's going to protect you. That's going to protect your time. I always
Right.
tell people like within 10 minutes, I can tell you, but it's a very easy thing. Okay. And the other thing is start with the end in mind. Like I needed to make $2,000 a month, extra $2,000 a month. That's it. But I needed to make that $2,000 a month in the course of the summer, because it had to come, I wasn't working during the rest of the year. So I had to go, okay, so this is X amount of dollars that I have to make. That means within this window of 10 weeks of summer camps, how much money do I need to make? And then I reverse it down. It's like, okay, this is how much I need to make. And maybe that was just for that year, because just obviously, cost of living went up and then my needs went up. But for that first year, I needed, I know, 2000, doesn't that tell you when I started?
Wow. It's like
Right?
tripled since then, but
Just need
we'll
2000. It's like, give us this day our daily bread. That's exactly what it was. Like, Lord, all I need is 2000. I'm not going to ask for anything more. It's 2000. But he did. And that was,
he
the
will
huge,
provide.
big part of it is start with that end in mind,
Right.
because you can go, okay, if I'm going to charge, and I'm just doing simple math, if I charge $300 a week and I have 10 campers, that's $3,000. Now I have to decide how much is going to all the other things, and is 10 enough? 10's not enough, then I need 12. If 12's not enough, then I need 14. Right. So but that's just 1 week, $3,000. So that's just like, again, simple math. Your area may be $400 or it may be $250. I don't know, because every area is different.
Right. Right.
Our area in Central Texas is crazy. It's way more than our Dallas area. Just is.
Right. Right. I think that's a great overview of what they need, but also a telltale sign. Like, yes, we need to begin with the end in mind, which I don't think a lot of us have thought about when we first got started with this. I know I wasn't thinking about the end in mind. I was just thinking what I wanted to do versus what I didn't want to do currently, and I had to make a change really fast, except I stumbled on myself afterwards. So having a mentor to tell you what to do and what to think and how to like attack the problem is very helpful. And it's been such a pleasure having you on and sharing all this information. And like I said, we will be doing
Thank you.
a workshop about how to get your profitable summer camp started. And those will be in the show notes. But if anybody wants to connect with you, what is the best way for them to go about doing that, either on socials or email?
I'm going to say email is the best way to get a hold of me. And it's going to be JoAnn, JoAnn at campmentor.com.
Perfect. And
Simple.
definitely go and check out campmentor.com. It gives a little bit more explanation as to how JoAnn works, how the program works, what the mentorship entails. And then we will hopefully see more of you, JoAnn. I'm going to have you come on again as we need to talk about more in depth on several different subjects that we covered today, which we didn't have enough time to go in depth on too many one thing. So thank you so much for coming. And I really am hoping that, you know, we can impact quite a few families just like you have as well in the coming summers.
Yes.
All right, everyone. Happy homeschooling. Thanks so much for joining.
Thank you.